So why don't we throw to the clip the question I asked Mr. Poilievre and his answer, and then we'll weigh in on it. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Poilievre, David Menzies with Rebel News.
Yes, David.
Mr. Poilievre, literally as we are speaking right now, just a little bit north of this hotel in Vaughan, a funeral is taking place for Abdul Aleem Faruqi. As you know, this is the 46-year-old father who paid the ultimate price in defending his family against home invaders. And yet yesterday, York Regional Police Chief Jim McSween, he held a news conference and he said a couple of things. One is that he wants citizens to comply during a home invasion and wait for police to arrive. He also said, quote, not to take matters into their own hands, end quote. It almost seems as though Chief McSween wants law-abiding citizens to be compliant victims. And of course, last week, in response to your comments about strengthening self-defense laws, the Justice Minister, Sean Fraser, stated on X, quote, this isn't the Wild West, it's Canada. Canadians deserve real solutions that make us safe, not slogans that inspire fear and chaos for Pierre's political survival, end quote. My question, Mr. Poilievre, is what is your response to the comments made by Chief McSween and Justice Minister Fraser?
Well, let's start with Sean Fraser's comments. He says it's not the Wild West out there. Oh, really? Maybe he should talk to Mr. Faruqi's family, this courageous and heroic man who came to the defense of his children who will be traumatized for the rest of their life by watching their father mercilessly killed by a criminal who should be in the slammer. And I hope that those children will, as much as their lives are going to be much more difficult, I hope that as they get older, they understand the true hero that their father was. I'm sure he didn't want to be defending his family. He wanted to be sleeping in bed like the rest of us, but he did it because of the instinct of a father to stand and fight and defend his home and his family from an invader. He shouldn't have had to, but liberal laws turn criminals free on our streets again and again and again. The Liberals have known this for years. Police officers, mayors, community groups have been crying out for an end to the Liberal catch and release criminal justice system. And yet Mark Carney, who's been Prime Minister for 5 months now, decided to go on vacation before ever reversing those laws, and made an even bigger mistake in appointing Sean Fraser as his Justice Minister, a man who first ruined the immigration system as the immigration minister under Trudeau, and then ruined the housing market as a housing minister. And to give him a third chance to screw something up, Carney has put Sean Fraser in charge of this. It's no wonder crime is raging out of control. My message is that we want to end the Wild West, lock up the criminals and throw away the key. 3 strikes, you're out. You 3 violent offenses, you go to jail and you never get out. And I'll add this. People have a right to defend their home. Your home is your castle. Someone comes into your house and threatens your family, you should have the right to take force against them to defend your family. That's what Conservatives propose with the Stand on Guard Act, and that is what we will fight for in this fall session.
So, Mark, let's start with you. I think it was a great response. I would correct Pierre Poilievre. It's kind of a Wild West in Canada right now. It's just that the guys with the black hats, the bad guys, they have the guns. The rest of us are expected, if you go by certain comments out there by those in law enforcement, those in the courts, we're supposed to cower and, I guess, hope for the best. Mark, where do you stand? Because in Florida, of course, if somebody responds with lethal force or near lethal force, as Jeremy McDonald did in Lindsay, standing up to a home invader at 3:20 in the morning with a crossbow that could take down a moose at 40 paces, this is not an issue. That citizen will not be charged. Why can't we have the same kind of laws here in Canada?
A very different culture between Florida. It truly is night and day. In fact, there was an incident just a few days ago in which an elderly person confronted a home invader, a gentleman who broke into his house and was set to burgle the place. And this individual heard what was going on. He was armed, and he had a gun pointed at this intruder. And he called the police. This was an elderly homeowner. Okay, he wasn't about to get into any kind of physical altercation, but he had the great equalizer, thanks to the Second Amendment in the United States. He pointed that firearm at that individual and called police, and the police showed up and they arrested the intruder. They didn't arrest the old guy with the gun, which is exactly what I think would have probably happened in Canada. I mean, even in the Wild West, as I understand it, David, people had the right. If somebody was attacking you, you had the right to attack them back. If they were shooting at you, if they came into your home, you had every right. And were in fact encouraged in many cases, as they have been in Florida, because we've had the governor here, Ron DeSantis, come out and say, look, if somebody breaks into your home, you can probably do us a favor by taking them out, save a bit of paperwork, having to charge somebody. They encourage people to defend themselves in this state. In Canada, the opposite is true. And for that, you have to really examine where these people's head are at. Why are they doing what they're doing? That, to me, is the most compelling question.
Yeah, that's what I love about states like Florida and Texas. It reminds me, Mark, of an old Western. I can't remember the title, but I remember the tagline, one of the best ones ever written. They came for gold, they got lead instead. Now, Sue-Ann, let me get into your mind here. It's 3 a.m. You're in your home. There's an intruder with a lethal force weapon. Contrary to what Chief McSween was lecturing people of York Region about 2 days ago, are you getting up from your bed and going, I better comply, and I better act with a proportionate use of force? No, I think you, like most reasonable people, adrenaline is coursing through your veins, and for your life and for the life of your loved ones, you go into mama bear mode. Am I right?
Absolutely, but we have an added defense mechanism here at Casa Levy. We have 3 terrorist dachshunds and the smallest one is the biggest terrorist. So if anybody dares break in, she'll be at their ankles so quickly, nipping at them. I think, having dogs, it does help scare off intruders, as we've discovered. But, I am so dismayed with the culture in our country right now, where, innocent victims, it's all topsy-turvy, where the innocent victims are the perpetrators and the perpetrators are victims. And I have the luxury of living half the year in Florida, where Mark is, and I feel a heck of a lot safer down there than I do here. I don't think the police protect us one bit. I've seen that on the streets where they stand with their arms folded. Yep. While Hamas holes come after me, screaming. And I think our government has let us down. The police have let us down. I don't know. Like, it's just going to come to a point where people say enough is enough. And I think it's starting.
And Sue-Ann, it's not conjecture that the likes of you and Mark are safer in Florida. The stats indicate that. I think of John Lott's book, More Guns, Less Crime, and he shows statistically those states with more firearm ownership, more liberal firearms laws, guess what? They have less violent crime. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. If I'm a burglar and I'm going to go into somebody's home in the wee hours of the morning and he might have a loaded handgun in his night table, forget it. That's too risky. So there you have it. How about you, Joe? I mean, in the animal kingdom, and I would say it's the same in the human kingdom, it all comes down to fight or flight, doesn't it? And my premise is that when you are in your house, you are over the finish line. Okay, there is nowhere left to run. And especially if you have kids, elderly family members, what are you supposed to do? Rouse them all out of bed and run out the back door. So at this point, you are obligated to use what I think is any means necessary, yes, even lethal force to protect you and your loved ones. And no, there shouldn't be any charges, because one of the biggest problems, Joe, they say unreasonable force, unnecessary force. Define it. Nobody can. Isn't this a catch-22 we're in?
It really is, and it really puts people in a predicament where, you know, they want to protect their families, they want to be able to, you know, but this fear of, you know, it's usually the person that it's happening to is the one that gets in trouble or the one that gets arrested. So, you know, all this fear that they've been pushing, it makes people, you know, kind of helpless and like, you know, I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't type of situation. But I could tell you this, I mean, if someone were to break into my house where I have my family, I have my 2 kids, I also have a massive dog waiting for them at the door, they may get in, but they probably won't be leaving. And that's an absolute fact. And basically, they were never there.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I just look at today's front cover of the Toronto Sun. I don't know if you can read it. The headline is, "Comply with this." And this isn't some just Joe Blow with a Louisville Slugger. That is Toronto councillor Brad Bradford, who says that he sleeps with this baseball bat under his bed, and everyone in his circle practically that he knows has some sort of a weapon, because I don't think we can depend on cops. And then when we do have them arrive, you get charged. And one last point I want to make, folks, it's the inconsistency. 4 years ago, there was a man in Red Deer that came to his home and found out it had been broken into. And the home invader, if you can imagine, was asleep in his bed, kind of like a dark version of Goldilocks. So he got his shotgun, he went, woke up the man, and he said, "I've called police, stay where you are." At first he complied, then he changed his mind. A scuffle ensued. He shot him dead. And Red Deer RCMP did not lay a single charge. Why is it he gets off scot-free, and he was in a situation where, in theory, he could have run away, but Jeremy McDonald in Lindsay, he had no choice at 3:20 in the morning with a guy with a crossbow. Let me go quickly around the horn here. Mark Petroni, why is there such inconsistency in our laws when it comes to so-called unreasonable force?
Because we need clarity in the law, and we really don't have it. It's kind of up to the cops to decide whether or not you used excess force. According to them, that happened in the Lindsay case. And, you know, they're just too vague in terms of what the judges are allowed to look at and interpret. So I'm with Pierre Poilievre on this one. Let's have absolute clarity around what the law says. Personally, I think if you're in somebody else's house, the benefit of the doubt needs to go to the homeowner. If the homeowner say, "I used as much force as I thought was necessary," then I think you go with his or her word. Yep. Okay, you say, "You know what? You're the homeowner here. You were the one who was intruded upon. The criminal was in your space. It was your call." Yep. That's what I think they should decide. That's the way I think it goes. You know, we first say, "What did you do?" And then we think, okay, well, you felt you took as much force as you felt was necessary at the time. Yep. And that's what I think you go with. You know, you believe the homeowner, in my opinion. And
well, Mark, it's not your opinion. I would venture a guess. You speak for 99.99% of Canadians, and the 0.01% are typically liberals living in gated communities with security. And speaking of which, Sue-Ann, I'm getting really tired of Doug Ford, you know, going, something ought to be done about this. I'll tell you, by golly. And he's talking about, if that happened to me like it happened to Jeremy McDonald, he'd do whatever he can to defend him and his family. Well, a week and a half ago, my cameraman and I went out to his house, not to harass him, but just to get a lay of the land. Do you know, Sue-Ann, he's got 2 Toronto Police Service SUVs with armed police officers in the driveway 24/7. So I'm sorry, Dougie, you're never going to be in a position to get your hands dirty. And doesn't that speak of the hypocrisy that It's one law for thee, one law for me. If you're part of the elite, you are going to go to bed with not a care in the world. And by the way, I'm happy that Doug Ford and his family are protected. Why can't we have the same protection?
Well, you read my mind, David, which is a very scary thing. Unless you're in the situation, as I have been twice, where I've been attacked and assaulted, and you have to think very quickly, and your instinct is to fight back, which I did both times. And then I had to deal with the court system. But unless you're in the situation, I'm sorry, these politicians have no idea what it's like. No idea what you're thinking. The first time I thought I was going to be killed, and I nearly was. And, so I'm sorry, I have no patience for any of them. As he talks about why he's pouring Crown Royal on the sidewalk or whatever he did. I mean, like, these people are weak buffoons, all of them.
Listen up, Calgary. Our Rebel News 10th birthday bash is almost here, and we want you there. But early bird ticket sales end this Monday night at midnight. After that, prices go up, no exceptions. So lock in your spot now for an unforgettable night of fun, food, free speech, and music. And don't worry, Toronto, we didn't forget about you. We've got a birthday bash coming your way in October. Head on over to happybirthdayrebel.com. Grab your tickets today before the deadline passes you by.